So I've had several people now ask me for advice on how to read more. And I will say, generally when you ask for advice, asking the people where something is natural and comes easy aren't going to be able to give the best advice. And there's a lot of things. So for me, reading is my default state. Reading is what I do when I'm not doing anything else. Reading for me means clearing up space in my schedule and addressing the guilt over reading when I feel like I should be doing other things. And the other thing is I'm hyperlexic. I taught myself to read before the age of 3. And we know early literacy changes the brain. We don't necessarily know with hyperlexia, but my reading speed is faster than a lot of other people. And I probably read in possibly a different way. Certainly, I know other people who reading is their default, but I still read more than them. That said, I do have 3 pieces of advice that I think are general advice that apply to me, but I think would apply to other people too. And so I want to talk about those quickly, because I've given them in the comments, but I think I'm just going to make this video and then people can find it instead of answering this question again and again. Because really it's only 3 pieces of advice I feel like I can give, which are, so the first one is read books you like. Find and read books you like. And that might sound vague, but people either have like a narrow idea of what's available to read. You may avoid things because of stereotypes about them. I had a commenter who commented on the fact that I bring up 7 Habits of Highly Effective People a lot, and that's for a couple reasons. One of them is that it's kind of a signaling thing, because among the class of people I come from, sort of, the people that Musa Al-Gharbi calls symbolic capitalists, they tend to hate this book. Like, they hate self-help in general, but particularly 7 Habits, because it's the most popular self-help book, and it's written by a Mormon. And so I'm trying to destigmatize books that, at least where I come from, are sort of unpopular. And I do this with other books too. Like I've mentioned The 4 Agreements and $1 Million Weekend, both of which are essentially what I would have considered like the worst kind of self-help book. This one has woo about ancient Toltec wisdom, and this one is a ghost-written get-rich-quick book. But they both have, I feel like, value if you can get past these obstacles. And then the other thing is, I had a negative impression of this book because of people I knew, and it's actually a really good book. And so when I actually read it, I'm like, oh wow, I'm really glad I read this. And it's a similar thing with Conflict of Visions, where part of the issue was Thomas Sowell readers, especially people who really like basic economics, have tended not to impress me. But part of it is also Thomas Sowell is, in the circles I come from, thought poorly of as a pop writer, or as a writer of like pop economics and pop history is sort of how he's seen, which is a similar thing to Jared Diamond, which was actually my 5th video that I made for this channel. And I put that out recently because I had put off putting it out because I knew it was going to be contentious, as it was. And I was a tiny channel, and I was like, I want to be putting out more videos after this, so it's not, doesn't look like I had one contentious video and then got bullied off the internet when it was just a production thing. And then I held off putting it off because it was scripted and unscripted thing. But anyways, this book, the reason I did it is, again, to try to destigmatize pop books. And that's also why my second video ever was on The Alchemist, which is not as unpopular, but it's still sort of like a lot of people think of it as an overly simplistic book. And so basically my point here is read more and don't let like stigma stereotypes about books or the genres of books stop you, and figure out what you actually like. And then the second thing is don't read things because you feel like you should. My experience is, even if it's a book that I would enjoy, if I feel like I should read it, I keep putting it off. And to read it, I need to get over that and be like, no, why did I want to read this again? Oh yeah, I remember the reason, and read it. So read it if you have a reason that such that you want to read it. And I mean, if you're in a class or something where you're required to read a book, then read for information. And maybe I'll make videos about that, but that's the thing that came natural to me, so it's kind of hard to explain. But you can like read books very quickly for information if you know how, and if you figure out why they're having you read them to get the critical points they want you to read them for. But if it's you're reading for pleasure, you're reading for yourself, don't feel like you should read books. Don't read books because you feel like you should read them. Doesn't matter how important the book is. Doesn't matter how much you think you want to read it. If you feel like you should, if it becomes a burden, it's going to be hard to read it and even harder to appreciate it. And then it's going to put you off the experience of reading. And then the third thing, and this one is the most important, is, like I said, reading is my default, but I would feel guilty and I'd do screen time. And then also screen time was just hard to get off. And so this book by Newport, Digital Minimalism, helped a lot. And it's taken me a while, and I still don't follow all of his strategies, but I do a lot of what he says. And so I've just spent a lot less time wasting time watching it disappear into a black hole on the internet. But the other thing is you need to set up like a time and place for yourself to read. And so ideally it's a space where you're only reading, but if you don't have that, then it should be a space where you're only reading in the daytime or you're only reading at night. So for example, if you sleep in your bed and you do work in your bed at night, then read in your bed in the daytime. Or if you work in your office, you have a comfortable chair in your office where you work in the daytime, read there at night. And I have a chair on my deck, which is the main place that I read, like when the weather is nice, which it is not nice because it's Houston, but when the weather, I can sit out there with a fan under the awning. And I read there in the morning and afternoon most days. But when the weather is prohibitive, I have a number of places that I don't do anything else but read in my house, which I can do right now. I mean, if you don't have that option, and when I've lived in smaller spaces, I've had areas that I've just observed for reading in the day or night. Having that context for me, at least I found, even for me, it is hard to read. When it's in a context, especially a context where I use screens, it becomes hard to read. Anyways, those are my 3 pieces of advice, and I'm posting this March 3rd, so 3-3, right? 3 pieces of advice for 3-3, following Ryan Holiday's 26 Rules for 26, which I responded to in previous video. And so my 3 pieces of advice, again, are read books you like, don't read books because you feel like you should, and have a dedicated place or at least time-place combination context where you are only reading or at very least not using screens. And I would definitely recommend, because I think most of us, especially if you're watching YouTube videos, are struggling with letting time disappear into a black hole be a big issue in our lives. And this has really helped me with it. And there's been other things that have contributed. And again, I'm still not doing everything, and it's taken me a while to get to what I'm doing, but those are my 3 pieces of advice. So anyways, thanks for watching. I'm Magpie. This is Zuli, and I'll see y'all in the next one.